Hello, and welcome to World of Lore, Halo, Episode 1, Operation Trebuchet. In the year 2513, the United Nations Space Command, or UNSC, launched Operation Trebuchet in response to a large insurrectionist uprising within the Eridanus system. Insurrectionist activity in the Eridanus system originally started back in 2494, led by a former UNSC Marine colonel who attempted to establish a successionist government inside the system. This initial uprising was eventually crushed by the UNSC in 2496. However, the Office of Naval Intelligence failed to locate the insurrectionists' main base. As a result, insurrectionist elements within the system would remain and eventually form the United Rebel Front. By 2513, the URF had regained much of its former strength and launched a second attempt to overthrow the Eridanus government. The URF, led by Colonel Robert Watts, intended to seize control of Eridanus II and use it as a base of operations to drag the colonial military administration into a costly guerrilla war. Fighting quickly spread throughout the Eridanus system, as the URF built up a small navy using seized civilian craft. The UNSC, anticipating the uprising, initiated Operation Trebuchet, a heavy-handed crackdown meant to bring all the descending outer colonies back into line. The UNSC response in the Eridanus system would be swift. A fleet would be dispatched to the system to crush the rebels, and the ensuing space battle within the Eridanus system saw the UNSC crush the rebel fleet with ease. Some URF ships would escape the onslaught of the UNSC and flee into the asteroid belt and establish a base there, Eridanus Secundus, and continue to conduct raids out of it. With the space inside the system secured, the UNSC would go on to launch a ground campaign on Eridanus II. The 9th Marine Expeditionary Force would try to capture the rebel leaders on the planet and pacify the local populace. One unit of the 9th, the 1st Battalion of the 21st Marine Division, led by Lieutenant Colonel Ponder, would try and capture the URF's second-in-command, who is located in Elysium City. Ponder would find the insurrectionist leader's wife and her father. Upon questioning the father, Ponder found out the man was aligned to the URF. Upon being exposed, the father threatened to kill himself, his daughter, and Ponder with a grenade. Ponder realized the man was bluffing and wouldn't do it, made moves to continue his line of questioning. However, an attached sniper, unaware of the situation, would shoot the rebel. This caused the rebel to pull the grenade's pin, killing himself and wounding Ponder. This failure to bring the URF's second-in-command would see the wounded Ponder demoted. However, the UNSC's operations elsewhere on the planet were largely successful, and the insurrectionists would be unable to establish a single stronghold on the planet. As a result, Colonel Watts would order all URF forces to retreat off the planet with the remaining ships that they had. The UNSC would attempt to stop the insurrectionists from escaping. However, they would fail to do so. The rebels would be able to enter slipstream space and regroup in the asteroids, where they would continue to conduct raids and act as pirates based out of Eridanus Secundus. Though the UNSC had more or less achieved success in the Eridanus system, Operation Trebuchet was still ongoing by 2524, and Colonel Watts had managed to spread the URF into other systems, including the Epsilon Eridani system in the inner colonies. By this point in time, Trebuchet had also resulted in over 1 million civilian casualties. Despite the UNSC's best efforts, terrorist attacks from the URF would continue to see civilians caught in the crossfire, and a large growth of anti-UNSC opinions began to crop up as the operation dragged on. When it was discovered that on the industrial planet of Tribute in the Epsilon Eridani system that there were several large insurrectionist cells operating on the planet, the UNSC would station a Marine battalion commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Aboyne. Aboyne would also be supported by the corvette UNSC Bumrush. When Aboyne's initial attempt to eliminate the insurrectionists on Tribute failed, the URF responded with waves of assassinations and bombings, while UNSC counter-raids in urban areas resulted in high civilian casualties. One such raid would take place in June of 2524, when 2 UNSC Special Warfare Squads led by Staff Sergeants Avery Johnson and Nolan Bernay would attempt to stop rebel bomb makers. This operation would prove disastrous for the UNSC. Though the bomb makers were found and executed, a single truck lined with bombs managed to escape to a restaurant in the nearby Casbah city. The 2 UNSC squads would pursue the truck. However, when given the order to shoot the rebel with the detonator, Staff Sergeant Avery Johnson would hesitate, allowing the rebel to detonate the truck full of bombs. 3 members of Bernay's team would be killed along with 38 civilians, while Bernay was critically wounded and Johnson would suffer light wounds as well. Though the insurrectionists initially enjoyed large amounts of support from the population, on the worlds they were on, this support would quickly dwindle as the populace realized that the rebels, more often than not, were the cause of their woes. In the end, Operation Trebuchet would be suspended by the UNSC not because of the high civilian casualty rate or because the insurrectionists were wiped out, but because on the agricultural world of Harvest, the furthest of the outer colonies, contact had been made with the Covenant. Most of humanity would rally behind the UNSC in the face of this existential threat. However, some insurrectionists would remain at large and continue to operate against the UNSC even as planet after planet ended up being glassed. Due to its suspension, Operation Trebuchet could be considered a failure, as it had failed at bringing the outer colonies back into line, and even in the face of extermination, anti-UNSC opinion would still be held by many in the outer colonies, especially as more worlds were glassed and the populace believed that the UNSC wasn't doing enough to defend them or had abandoned them in favor of defending the precious inner colonies. Though the insurrection would never again reach its former heights due to Operation Trebuchet and the Covenant, insurrection activity would remain in place even after the war with the Covenant had been concluded. I hope you enjoyed this episode about Operation Trebuchet. More Halo lore will come in the future, as well as lore from other fantasy and sci-fi universes, as there are plenty of tales left to tell.